What up, motherfuckers? It's your boy, the Hater. I'm gonna do a quick video here. I got a couple of videos that have nothing to do with wrestling on the way as well. But let's do a wrestling video real quick. I was thinking about this, right? Kenny Omega, after I did my last video where I briefly talked about this, I actually went and I looked and I saw that Kenny Omega is now also the TNA or whatever Impact World Champion, right? Good for him. No one cares. That title means nothing. Rich Swann had it. He was the Cruiserweight Champion. And I mean, enough said. It's like a useless title now, you know? So, but nonetheless, he is a double champion. It's a big deal in the context of the fact that he's champion on 2 shows. Now, the question becomes, of course, the first year of All Elite Wrestling where Kenny Omega was losing matches left and right, you know, and they made Dean Ambrose the world champion, you know. What was the point of that, right? What was the point of the Dean Ambrose title run? Like, nothing came of it, right? It's not like we had some great match or anything like that, right? He just beat a bunch of people that we knew he was going to beat until he lost to Kenny Omega. Like, he defended his title against Darby Allin, against, like, Joey Janela probably, Eddie Kingston, these people that, like, we all knew were not going to be the world champion. The only person that was presented as a possible threat of beating him was, like, obviously Jericho, but I don't even think they had a rematch. And even if they did, obviously after he wins the title, he's not going to lose it. And then what's it called? Kenny Omega, right? Who actually ended up beating him. Now, here's the thing, right? Why wouldn't it be better if, let's just say, Jericho had like a long ass title reign? Like, he was the first champion, and just recently now he lost at the Kenny Omega, who remained undefeated for the whole year, but somehow Jericho kept ducking him or kept cheating or anything like that, right? And Kenny Omega was either undefeated or just lost to Jericho once or twice, right? So then you have Kenny Omega with like a near perfect record and now being a 2-time or a double champion, if you will, right? That would have made a lot more sense than just wasting a year of time to get to this point, right? To get to the point where Kenny Omega is the superstar. As a matter of fact, if Kenny Omega had won the title, let's say 6 months before he did, and then now won the TNA title, it would have really solidified the fact that he is on top, right? You could then argue that he's one of the best wrestlers. But if Kenny Omega spends the majority of the first year, like, being the second guy in a tag team with Adam Page, and just being in the middle of what seemed to be an Adam Page Young Cucks feud, you know, what was the point of that? It made no sense, right? And then he beats Adam Page and he eventually turns heel. You know, you could have handled this so much better. Now, I understand that, like, you want Jericho to be champion, and that's fine. What I'm saying is the Dean Ambrose title run did nothing for anyone, right? Like, you could have had Dean Ambrose waiting, you know, being the guy that beats Kenny Omega for the title, or at least one of them, and then having Kenny Omega drop the TNA title with some other TNA jobber, you know what I mean? So there you have it. That would have been the better way to do it, right? It would have made Kenny Omega feel like he is unbeatable, like he is a big deal, right? He would clearly be like one of the best wrestlers in the world in terms of kayfabe if for a whole year and a half, almost 2 years, a year and a half, let's say, a year and a half, a little bit less than a year and a half, I believe, but whatever, a year and a half, if he hadn't lost any matches or had lost one, like he wrestled every week and he just tore through the roster 2 times over, maybe lost the big one against Jericho once, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff, like, that would be a good way to do it, you know? It would have really improved everyone's standing, even Dean Ambrose's, because then Dean Ambrose would have that, like, this guy's not champion yet, we can't wait for him to be champion, you know, mystique. Now, Dean Ambrose is just there doing nothing, you know what I mean? Like, this guy, like, he's just wrestling for no reason. He's after Kenny Omega, but he's not going to beat Kenny Omega for the title anytime soon. And if he does, that's just bad booking. So what I'm getting at here is this. You know, in wrestling, people want to see the best versus the best, right? The champion is supposed to be a proxy for who is the best. There are, of course, times when you have someone like The Miz, let's say, and he's the champion, right? And when Miz was champion a few months ago, like, he wasn't presented as the best wrestler. He was presented as this opportunistic, cowardly champion, but he was there to transition to what then appeared to be the best wrestler, at least on Raw, Bobby Lashley, right? Like, Lashley's presented as, like, the top guy on Raw. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, he's the top guy on Raw, you know? So people want to see the best versus the best. Nobody wants to see the second best versus the third best, you know? So when you have these situations where everyone in AEW is protected, then problems start to arise, right? You know, the whole premise, in my opinion, was when they made All Elite Wrestling, right? The idea was that it would be the best wrestling the best. Not Adam Page wrestling Brandon Cutler. Nobody wants to see that, right? Because even in the context of AEW, Brandon Cutler isn't elite. Like, he is a jobber in AEW. You know what I mean? He's an AEW jobber. Same thing with a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys are jobbers. They're not, like, elite at all. So, they have, like, Sean Spears, Ty Dillinger. This guy is a jobber. He's a jobber in AEW. He's not just a jobber everywhere. I mean, he's been a jobber everywhere he's been, but he's a jobber in AEW. So the question becomes, like, how is this guy now all of a sudden nothing happened? He just changed his hair color. Now he's elite. Like, he's like going to be in main events basically, because I'm sure that's going to close the match. I mean, close the pay-per-view. So it's like, or if it doesn't, it should, because it's supposed to be like a big match. So how does that make any sense, right? I propose that AEW change their name to NEW, which of course stands for Never Elite Wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Nothing is ever elite in this company. Like, no one is presented as elite. Everyone is presented as a beatable jobber. Even Dean Ambrose lost to Kenny Omega, who comparatively is a nobody. Dean Ambrose is like a former WWE champion. Jericho's a former WWE champion. Jericho's obviously the most elite guy they have there. Maybe like Big Show now, I guess, right? And maybe Sting if you want to, like, consider him. But you have all these people that are elite, like Christian, like Sting, Big Show, and they're not even on TV, like wrestling at least, right? Yes, I know Christian's had a few matches, but he's been around for almost a month, with no discernible, like, storyline direction. It's just going to be him versus Brian Cage, I guess. Like, that's not, nobody wants to see that. That's not even believable, Sting has been there for several months, and he's done fuck all. I get it, he's old, but if he's that old where he can't wrestle on a weekly basis and have squash matches, I'm not saying have Sting, compete with Darby Allin and be thrown through tables. Like, have Sting beat, like, I don't know, like mid-level guys. Like, have Sting beat, I don't know, fucking Lance Archer is a good one. Have him squash Lance Archer just to show how good Sting is. That Sting is still Sting. Have Sting beat, I don't know, Wardlow. Have Sting beat these big, strong guys that are supposed to be big deals, but the argument would be Sting is still Sting, and these guys are still these guys, right? Have Sting beat that level of talent. Have Sting beat Ty Dillinger. Have Sting beat Jungle Boy, you know what I mean? Have Sting beat these mid-carders, like, at least. And then at the pay-per-view, have Sting beat a main event type guy in a nice 8 to 10 minute match. One of the other problems is that AEW focuses on these 25, 30-minute matches, and therefore, someone like Sting is even more exposed than he would be in another situation, right? Because in the Attitude Era, for example, that's why it didn't matter as much in the Attitude Era that The Rock or Stone Cold were not these fantastic, like, in-ring guys, right? They had like 3 moves each, and that's all you needed to see. Because they, when they would wrestle on Raw, they'd either be in tag matches or they would wrestle and pretty much have squash matches. Let's say it like it is, right? The Rock would just, like, wrestle for 5 minutes. Something would happen, either like interference or The Rock would rock bottom someone really fast, etc., right? So that's kind of where we stand here. You know what I mean? Sting beating someone like Matt Hardy could make Sting look better. Nobody looks elite in AEW. Like, let's call it like it is, motherfuckers. Nobody looks elite. Everybody looks jobberish. Now they're finally trying to make Kenny Omega look and feel elite in the context of the fact that he is a double champion. But imagine how much more impactful this would have been if Kenny Omega came into the storyline undefeated, right? Or maybe having a loss or two. But Kenny Omega was getting his ass beat left and right. He was losing to, like, Pac. And now Pac is with Rey Fenix wrestling the Young Bucks in a feud they're not going to win. So it makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, none of this, like, logic made absolutely any sense to me. All Elite Wrestling has failed to live up to their name, which is a big fucking deal, motherfuckers. Big fucking deal. You create this name that implies that here's where you're going to see the best wrestling. Like, this is like a wrestling company, right? We're going to see good wrestling here. Not only good wrestling, we're going to see elite wrestling. And not just elite wrestling, but everything you see is going to be elite. Like, it's all elite, right? But no, it's never elite, because people still continue to trade wins and losses for no reason, right? Like, was there a reason in hindsight, right? In hindsight, earlier when it happened, maybe there could have been a reason. For example, like, let's say, Private Party beating the Young Bucks. Was there a reason for that? It didn't lead to a Private Party push of any sort. Like, they're on the same level of the card as Hybrid 2. Like, if Hybrid 2 and Private Party won, Private Party would probably win. But that's it. Like, that's their ceiling. Their ceiling is they can beat Hybrid 2. They can beat Butch and Bottom, but they can't beat anybody else. Like, Private Party versus, like, LAX versus the Young Bucks versus FTR, it's like a guaranteed loss for Private Party. So why would you have them beat the Young Bucks? Like, in their third match. Why would you bury the Young Bucks like this, being one of the only recognizable names you have? The only logic behind that would have been to push Private Party. But they didn't push Private Party. So it is stupid, right? Darby Allin, for example, one of the only people that has benefited from being associated with this company, aside from the executive vice president. He's the only guy that has benefited. He was a complete nobody before. He had like a match with Cody where they went to a time limit draw, and now he's main eventing every week for his for his TV title. So that's the way that you could push someone. They could have done the same thing that they did with Darby Allin with Private Party, but since they did not, why not just push the main guys? Push them right off the bat. The only way that this could have worked was if you use the relatively minimal star power of people like Cookie Rhodes, Cookie Omega, and the Young Cucks to push the lesser known talent, to say that these guys are almost as good as us. But that didn't happen. And that was the only reason why people like Kenny Omega should ever see a loss in this company. Otherwise, Kenny Omega should be booked like John Cena. So then when someone like Christian Cage comes in, they can wrestle and it's a big deal. Now it's not a big deal because he's a heel, he's a coward heel, and Christian is a better wrestler than him, obviously, and he's going to beat Christian when he does through cheating. So what's the point? What was the point of that? How is that elite? It loses its name, it loses its gravitas, it loses its meaning. The reality is what the reality is. All Elite Wrestling is nothing special. All Elite Wrestling is just watered down WWE. It's the same tired storylines. It's the same I'm being held back mentality. You have for someone like Miro, right? You have Miro. He's in the best shape he's ever been. This guy can definitely wrestle. He's not good on the mic. He doesn't have a good gimmick, obviously. I mean, he's okay on the mic, considering what he is, a big, strong guy. He doesn't have, typically those guys aren't really good on the mics, but he's at least decent on the mic, and this guy is once again being wasted, right? But this time he actually is being wasted because he's getting no push whatsoever. Rusev would beat Miro's ass, you know what I'm saying? So there you have it, Cucks. There you have it. Nothing elite about All Elite. All Elite Wrestling fucking blows, motherfuckers.